Welcome to the first episode of Grow Nation podcast. I'm your host Navjot, and on this podcast, we'll be talking to successful entrepreneurs who have made it big. We'll have deep conversations with them, understanding their stories, where they came from. Were they born with a special talent, or their circumstances made them who they are today?
Life is really good until you want things and you can't have them.
In today's episode, we have a special person that I've been following for a very long time.
My true mission was to help as many people as possible. It has to start with helping myself.
He was born in a war zone in El Salvador. His father went to the war and never came back.
Because I never ever wanted my daughter to feel that way.
His mother was put in the jail, and from ages 2 to 5, he was in confinement away from the world.
Remember, my first value was integrity that my mom gave me. If it wasn't for the birth of my daughter, I would not be here today, right? I would either be in jail or dead.
From becoming a father at the age of 17, to becoming a millionaire at the age of 21, to becoming almost bankrupt in his mid-20s, and then becoming financially independent at the age of 30, his story is no less than a movie.
Anybody can be rich. Wealth is long term.
For the last 16 years, he has been inspiring and helping entrepreneurs like me invest in real estate and multifamily homes across North America. He is none other than Alfonso Quadra, the founder of Wealth Genius. Alfonso, thank you so much for doing this. I have so many questions for you. So many.
I appreciate you coming to Ottawa, you know?
I had to. I'll tell you a story, right? So when I joined Wealth Genius, before I joined Wealth Genius, I was watching you, and I wanted to interview you always. And one of the small, tiny best reasons, yes, I obviously wanted to learn as well, but one of the tiniest reasons for me joining Wealth Genius was I wanted to do this. So one of my very big objectives have been achieved today. So thank you so much for doing it.
My pleasure. And thank you for coming to the event. We had a good time.
Absolutely.
And we spent time in Tampa as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, it's been a learning experience. I did invest in the US.
Yes.
With Thomas. So it's just a very exhilarating experience, and we'll talk all about that because I really want to know, Alfonso. Like a lot of people say that your past shapes who you are today. So I would love to know, what is that one thing that I need to know, or an event that I need to know from your past to understand what you're doing right now?
Well, there's a series of events, right? So one event leads to another, leads to another, leads to another, right? So the first event would be probably between the ages of 2 to 5. So between the ages of 2 to 5, I was not allowed outside. I was not allowed to interact with other kids. I was pretty much living in captivity, right? And the reason for that is because I came from El Salvador, war-torn country. My mom was a journalist, and she was an ethical journalist, meaning she wanted to write about the truths in the injustice that was happening with our government. Governments don't like that, and so eventually the office was shut down, and she was illegally detained and brought to prison, where she was going to serve a 40-year sentence. So my grandparents, took me, and they kept me in hiding, and they changed my name. And actually, my name should have been Eduardo, believe it or not. But they changed my name, and ultimately, they were afraid that the government would kidnap me or use me in as leverage against my mom, right? So that event, I think, has shaped my life, because when you are by yourself, as a kid, your imagination is incredible, and even though I was alone, I had hundreds of friends in my imagination, right? Funny story, one time. So back home, this is what we do. We bring chickens in the house, and we fat them. We feed them, and they get fat, and then
yeah, that happens.
Right. And so this chicken then that brought, I named it Rodrigo, became my best friend.
Okay. Wow.
I would play with this chicken every single day. And I remember one day my grandmother grabbed me, and my grandfather grabbed the chicken. And
how old were you then?
I must have been about 4, right? 4 years old.
I
So, because the question was, what has shaped me, right? Like all these, there's been a series of events, right, that have shaped the person who I am.
Is that your earliest memory?
No, I have earlier memories than that, but I mean, it was about 3 years, and I remember playing. I remember having this incredible imagination. Like I thought at one point I thought I was Superman. I jumped off a second story. I landed on my
Oh
head.
no.
Like I mean, my mind has always been very creative, and ultimately, my mom was given asylum to come to Canada. We were political asylum seekers, and we landed in Montreal. And I was so happy and fascinated with other kids. I would like hug other kids, kiss other kids, and I've always been, from that moment, I've been a people person. I love people. I can't be by myself. A lot of people enjoy time on their own, right?
But that could cause, to some people, they could actually go in a very dark place as well.
Sure,
So
sure.
I know you were a kid, and
Yeah.
probably you would not know what was your turnaround or what was that switch that you said that no, you want to be a people's person and not go inside of you
Yeah.
into your own captivity. So, like, what was that?
Well,
That
the thing was, I fascinated about being around people. I was fascinated about it. I was like, like I would watch television shows, cartoons, and I would see kids playing, right? And so that was my dream, to play with other kids. And so when I came to Canada, and you see all the kids, I just want to be around all these kids all the time. And I've always grown up that way. Like I always want to be around people, right? COVID was very tough for me. I'm a people person. When you put me in that captivity place, it brought me back to when I was living in El Salvador, like no friends, you can't talk to anybody, you can't go outside, So I'm a very, I'm very in tune with people. I have, I feel like I can feel someone, I can connect with them, I can be present with them, and I think those are some of my gifts, as a result of that.
wow. So I never imagined that as a kid, between 2 to 5, you can actually develop, that
Yeah.
particular trait
Yeah.
of yours.
Yeah.
Do you believe in privilege? What I mean by that is that, like a lot of immigrants, and your story is a little bit extreme, from that point of view, like one of the most extreme stories. But a lot of people who are born here, I think a lot of people crib about, the government, the taxes, because they were born here. So they were born with a certain amount of privilege. And I mean no disrespect to anyone, right?
Oh, and
But do you,
finish your
yeah,
question.
so, but do you think that, when you come from a darker place versus someone who is born here, and when you see them, talk shit about, a lot of things, like, how do you react to that? Like,
Yeah. So I basically let people be. People have their own mindsets. They have their own experiences. My darkest place is my darkest place, but it's not the darkest place ever that someone has ever experienced. Someone growing up in Canada could have gone into a dark place, and it feels just the same as my darkest place. So I understand that the feeling is the same. I think that the Western world is very affluent, and back home, especially where I come from, the priority for the majority of the people is survival. Like, where are we going to get food? We need to put a roof over our heads. It's almost like you're holding a door, right? You're holding a door, and behind that door, you have hunger, you have crime, you have where my kids are going to go to school, can they go to school? All of these things that you're trying to hold back, right? In the Western world, we don't have those problems. Of course, at a very minute level, you do. But what happens is people somehow, I feel, they need the struggle, and people need to feel like they're marginalized, right? So everyone has a group, and because at the end of the day, we don't have those same issues that we do back home, like feeding yourself, feeding your family, putting a roof over your head. So those are taken care of. The basic needs are taken care of. And so the human need is now, it needs to like create things because we need that struggle as a society, right?
But my struggle always is that how do you, and that goes for me as well. I don't have a very dark past. I don't have a very strong why that I need to retire my parents, because my parents are doing well on their own, right? I have not gone through a lot of pain in my life. So do you think that pain is necessary, or kind of a prerequisite to success, or do you think there's more?
The journey of understanding your why, it's a lifelong journey, right? For the most part, most people go into like something very superficial. Like I want world peace. I want to save the children. I want to, stop world hunger or whatever. And then that's my why. That's what's going to drive me. And at the very beginning, any why will help you. You need to have something that you can hold on to, right? But if you go deeper and deeper and deeper, everyone has a motive, like a motivation. There's a core to everyone's why and why they're doing anything, right? It's like a driver, right? And you don't know that it's in you until you discover it, right?
How do you do that?
It's work, right? So I've done a lot of reading with books from Simon Sinek, and he talks about the 7 layers of why. And so the why journey starts at peeling back the layers like an onion, right? And what happens when you peel an onion, it goes in your eyes and you cry. But the idea is, as you are peeling back these onions, as you're peeling back the onion layers, you're going deeper into a more emotional state where it will make you cry, right? It's so powerful that it's emotional, right? When you discover these things, there's a lot of things in your childhood that you don't even remember, that you haven't even maybe you blocked them out of your memory. For example, when I was a kid. So when I did this, I went through this journey myself, right? Okay. So for the longest time, my why was always my kids, right? I'm doing it for my kids. At 17, I became a father, right? And that changed everything for my. You asked me at the very beginning, what were the series of events? Well, one was wartime. The second one was trying to integrate into the education system, which it didn't fit. I didn't fit into the education system. Ultimately, getting frustrated and dropping out of high school and leaving home and then living on the streets. And so I had dark moments, but the life-changing moment for me was the birth of my daughter when I was 17. And that gave me purpose. That gave me a why. It did push me forward. And for the longest time, I've always said, my kids are my why. But when I started digging, and it didn't work at first. Maybe my mind wasn't there. Maybe I wasn't resonating with it, because, of course, my kids are my why, right? And you said you struggled with the why because you haven't had trauma, or you haven't had your parents are good. Everyone's good. Everyone's feeling good, right? And I believe you do have a why. You just don't know what it is, right? And so, when I did this work of peeling back these onions, peeling back the onion, and it happened during COVID. Like I said, I'm a people person. I love people. I want to be around people, and maybe those are distractions, And so COVID, the only gift is it was forced on me to stop, slow down, and reflect. And so through this reflection, I'm like, okay, maybe I should do this why thing again. But at this time, I did it in front of the mirror. And I looked at myself in the mirror. There's something powerful about looking at yourself in the mirror. You can stand in your truth, right? You can't lie to yourself, and you might have to do this a few times. But for me, after going through a few layers, and I'll show you how this works. So, for example, you have these goals, these series of goals of everything you want to accomplish. Could be anything. Well, why? Why do you want to do that? Okay. My kids. Like, okay, your kids. But why your kids? Well, I don't want them to have to grow up the way I did. Okay. But why? Okay. So then you go deeper and deeper and deeper. This is an exercise. And you might have to do it, I don't know, 100 times, because I tried it before, it didn't work. But for whatever reason, it worked that day. Right. And I went really deep. And it came down to when I was 12 years old, I asked my mom, where's my dad? And my mom said, your dad left during the war, never came back. And I blocked this memory from my mind. So this is what I'm saying. Like, there's memories that you don't even remember. They're blocked, but they have affected and shaped your entire life. And I remember thinking when I was 12, I was like, if I had a son and there's a war, I don't want to take my son with me. And so I remember thinking, what's wrong with me? Why wasn't I good enough for my dad to take me with him? And the second I realized that was like the core why, I knew why when my daughter was born, something snapped inside of me. Because I never, ever wanted my daughter to feel that way. In fact, it has shaped everything I've done. It's a main motivator in everything that I do. When I started business, my first business back when I was 17, I was always inclusive with people, right? I was always helping people. I never, ever wanted for anybody to feel like they're left behind, they're not good enough. And I've always been this person that is that just wants to uplift people. And that was the main motivator for everything in my life, right? Like why I started Wealth Genius, why I'm the person I am, why am I all over the country, I fly from place to place. There's something driving me that is greater than myself, and it goes back to when I was 12 years old. The way I felt, I never want anybody to feel that way. So I've done everything to make sure that people feel included and supported, guided, and no one should be left behind.
That's very powerful. But do you think that this weighs you down when you try to include everyone else? Like you try to include as many people as possible, but some people just can't be included.
Sure.
Do you because of your past, do you feel weighed down?
Well, how fast can you run with someone on your back? How fast can you run?
Not very.
How fast can you run with 2 people on your back?
Worse.
How about 3? And so you can't carry anybody. That's what I learned a long time ago. I did try to carry people, people that I grew up with. I came from Ottawa housing. I lived in areas that, people were not, they were not wealthy. People had a different kind of mindset, and ultimately, I didn't want to leave people behind. But if I wanted to help anybody, if my true mission was to help as many people as possible, it has to start with helping myself. Alfonso Loves You, it's on the cup. Alfonso Loves You came from, at the very beginning, loving myself. I can't love anybody if I don't love myself. I can't help anybody if I don't help myself, right? So before all of this, first I had to build my business. I had to build my portfolio. And then basically the way it is, it's like, okay, I'm running. If I look to my right, I look to my left. If you're there, good, we'll run together. But I can't carry people, right? Everybody's got to, or else we're not, the mission will be stalled.
Everyone wants to achieve success, right? So
Yes.
everyone wants to run. And probably they are, but the direction could be different.
Yes.
Or it could be running towards a place that you don't even know it's dark, right?
Yeah.
So, like from that point of view, when you see people running, but not in a direction that they should, because
Yeah.
of all your, like you have experienced a lot, and with that comes wisdom.
Yeah.
And when you see people running in the wrong direction, or in a direction that's not good enough for them, or they're not going to their potential, why do you think that is? Like, why do you think people run but not fast enough, or not in the right direction?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question, I think, because there's so much information out there, and I think people become addicted to information and addicted to doing things, but maybe they're not achieving anything, right? I always tell people, you know what? Like, you got to take action. Without action, nothing happens. But then, what action do you take, right? And so this is where communities or educational tracks. That's what helps, right? Like, I can go to university every single day. Every day. But if I don't enroll into a program and have a direction, I will never have a degree, right? And so ultimately, that's what Wealth Genius was created, to give people guidance so they can run towards the right way. You can spend all your time doing all of the wrong things.
No.
And the truth is, you don't have to reinvent the wheel, right? Like, someone has done this before. This is why, people say, oh, it looks like Wealth Genius just came out of the blue, Like, it's just like all of a sudden, like, there's Wealth Genius. No, this is like 27 years of my life's work put into this one platform, right? The companies that I've built, the real estate that I've bought, we're talking about over 20 years of experience. And so people get to tap into my experience. They don't need to reinvent the wheel. They don't need to make the mistakes that I've made, right? And so I'm offering that in a platform, in a tangible product that people can have. The other side is, someone said, well, I want to try it on my own. I want to make my own mistakes. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No.
There's no one's gonna stop you. But ultimately, if you're not determined enough, if your why is not strong enough, you're gonna give up. You're gonna say, this doesn't work, because you're like, number one, it's hard on your own.
Yeah.
Right? Have you ever had a gym membership?
Yeah.
Do you have ever had a personal trainer?
Yes, I do right now, because
Yeah.
I hated the gym.
Yeah.
Because I was doing it
Exactly.
alone. Yeah.
Exactly. But now you're accountable to someone,
Yes.
coaching, mentoring, all of this stuff, it sounds hokey pokey, but it works. Like, everyone that's achieved anything in life has always had a coach, a mentor. And this is why people run, people do, people watch, people read, but nothing happens, right? And so the idea of having a mentor or a coach, a community, guidance, education, is so you're running towards the right direction. It's like time compression.
Yeah.
Right? So you can either take 20 years to figure it out, or someone, tap in. It doesn't have to be me, right? I'm not the only person out here.
Yeah.
But, like, connect with some sort of education, some sort of coaching, some sort of community, some sort of mentorship, and you're going to see results.
So I'll give you my experience with coaching, and probably that would unfold a lot of you talked about 96% of people thinking a certain way. So I always thought that I know enough, because I didn't know what I didn't know, for a long time, right? I was doing well in my work, but I didn't know I can make more money. I really thought that people who make money, they do it the wrong way. Everything that's there in Rich Dad Poor Dad and the Poor Dad advice, that was me. When I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, I was like, it's a scam. That was my first instance back in 2009 or 2010.
Yeah.
So I did not want to take coaching. I had mentors, and like my Mamaji was my mentor, my family.
yes,
but
yes.
like I did not want to take coaching because there was something stopping me.
Yeah.
Maybe it was fear of doing something and failing, or it's fear of judgment, or it's fear of maybe success. I know that I can, if I quit my but there were so many hurdles in my head that did not let me take the next step. And when Well Genius, I got to know about Well Genius, it was a no-brainer for me because I had developed that, mentality of being a student.
Yes.
Because I have failed in my businesses because I did not take coaching. Like, do everyone have to fail and then realize? How do you make someone realize that you need a coach?
Yeah, so some people it's automatic. They're like, I'm not gonna try to figure this out on my own. I'm just gonna move forward,
Yeah.
right? Sometimes it's like maybe how you grew up, maybe your parents. Like, I mean, your parents have a big influence over you, right? I mean, they're the ones that were there at the very beginning, molding you. You know what I mean, shaping your ideas and everything that how you're gonna see life, and most parents, okay, and I want you to think about this. When your kids leave the house, what does every single parent say to their kids? What we say, 96% of the parents.
Be careful.
Be careful. And so that means the world is bad, is out to get you, right? Everything's a scam. And so that's programming. We're programming our kids. And what if before our kids left the house, we said, look for opportunities. They're out there, right? What if we said that to our kids as a society, right? Like everyone is now instantly looking for opportunities, then being careful.
Wow, that's powerful. that actually defines why me and a lot of people
Yeah.
always see an opportunity as a threat first.
Yes.
And then only after they cross a hurdle, they're like, that made sense.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
Going back to your parents, right? So your mom was an ethical journalist. So you have
Yeah.
seen, a lot of that,
Yeah.
and you do remember a lot of that. So how has that shaped you in what you're doing today? Like, is there any influence?
Well, one, like my mom was a strong woman, right? I mean, she was not only was she a journalist, but she owned her own news agency. So before, in the 70s, 60s, you wouldn't have correspondents in different markets. What you would do is the news would just buy the news from news agencies. Okay. So my mom would have she had her own news agency. She was producing news for the world, right? Because there was, at this point, you have a civil war, and all the outlets they need to buy the news. So my mom, she's 4'11".
Okay.
A woman in Latin America, right? So in Latin America, you have machismo, right? And so machismo is like, the man, it's a man oriented. And even the language is, you have masculine and feminine, and it is what it is. That's how the country is. And so for a woman in the 70s to be in a position of power, and my mom's a feminist, and she's brought me up that way, right? So that has also shaped me, because I'm like, okay, everyone everyone needs a chance. Everyone has the opportunity to shine. And I was blessed with 2 daughters, right? And then I don't want them to be like me. I want them to be better than me, right? And my legacy will continue on through them, but they will make it better, right? They will make things better. And so that has shaped the person I am. Her biggest, I guess, her legacy that has been transferred to me is integrity. She couldn't teach me about business. She couldn't teach me about real estate or how to manage money, credit, how to have the wealthy mindset. I didn't learn any of that. I had to learn that on my own, and I had to change certain paradigms. But the gift was she gave me values that I live by today, and integrity, right? Having integrity, being a person of integrity, being a person of your word, right? If I say I'm going to show up somewhere, like you see the weekend that you were on my weekend,
Yeah.
right? Today, I woke up this morning and I was like, oh, you know, like it was just I was just drained from the
Yeah.
weekend, right? But I gave my word to you that I'd be here this morning, right? And so my word means everything, right? And the way anybody does anything is the way they will do everything. And so that has been a gift that's been given to by my mom, right? That integrity. And then, of course, there was other things that maybe I didn't want to. I don't want to. I didn't want to participate. You know, that poor mindset. Everyone's after you and all that. But I think from our parents, we take the good, and we can leave the bad.
But that requires a lot of talking to yourself, like you said, in the
Oh,
mirror.
personal development is huge. That self work. You know, I'm 46 years old right now. You know, like if I can go back to when I was 15, I had no confidence. I had no self-worth. I didn't believe in myself. I thought everybody's out to get me. You know, everybody's, everyone is has an agenda. You know, that's kind of the mindset that I had, you know. And this idea that you can build wealth, that people could be wealthy, I was like, that's impossible, right? Anytime I've ever talked about it, people have said, no, that's not for you. You're not going to be, you know. Even the mindset of like, you know, I played a lot of basketball and said it had to grow, right? And you have to expand the mindset. You have to do a lot of work on yourself to get to the point where you can even believe that it's possible for you. Because if you don't believe, nothing will happen. Even that you can say it, like, I'm going to do it. But if you don't really believe it, nothing is going to really happen. Nothing will materialize until you do the work and you start learning about yourself. And I had to learn about myself. And it's still a study. I'm still studying. It's a big book.
Yeah, no.
And so every day you just got to be better. You got to do the self work. People that are lazy there won't progress, and they'll wonder why. Right?
So when you were 17, you had your first daughter. Is that around the same time that you started your first business? Or
It was a result of look, I was in a really dark place. I always tell my daughter, her name is Talia. I have two daughters. Talia, 27, and Alicia, 17. You know, I mean, I was a different person. I'm always a different parent for both of my daughters. But I always tell her, you're my guardian angel, right? Because she pretty much came and saved my life. If it wasn't for the birth of my daughter, I would not be here today, right? I would either be in jail or dead, you know, or maybe just like somewhere, you know, working a minimum wage job, or, you know, I wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't be the person I am.
How did that turn your life around? Like, you found a why.
I didn't.
What did you do?
I had no idea. Obviously, we don't want to promote for young people to have kids in order to find
absolutely. Absolutely.
That's not what we're doing.
That goes without saying.
Yeah.
But what was that action that you took?
Yeah. So what happened? So look. So, you know, when my ex, my daughter's mom, told me she was pregnant, I was like, oh boy. You know, I'm 17, but it doesn't really sink in. Like, you're 17, you're about to have a kid. Nothing really sinks in, right? And we didn't have proper communication. I didn't have a cell phone, right? And she went to labor overnight. They brought her to the hospital, and my daughter was born, right? And then in the morning, I had a beeper. You remember beepers?
Okay.
Do you remember beepers? Pagers?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Pagers,
So I got a page, and then I had to call. You know, I had to call from the payphone, and because she was premature, she was due in October, but she came in September, and so I pay. They're like, oh, come and meet your daughter. What? Okay, I didn't even have money for the bus. I had to walk to the hospital, right? And so I walked, And I'm 17. I'm 17 years old. What do I know about anything? You know, I'm going there, but it still hasn't hit me, you know? And then I go into the hospital room, and she's in this incubator, right? Tiny. She's so tiny. She's like this small. And the nurse says, "Do you want to hold her?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" What if I drop her? Right? And she's like, no, this is your daughter. You want to hold her. And so she opened up the incubator. I'm like, oh my God, this is crazy. They're gonna put like I have no experience with kids. I don't have any brothers or sisters. I never had I never had access to babies, you know. And you know, the first thing I noticed is how tiny she was, and it just scared me. Like, I'm not responsible enough to have a kid right now. You know, what am I gonna do? If you buy anything, right? This media wall, it comes with instructions.
Yeah.
You know, anything in life, you buy this phone, the camera, the laptop, everything in life comes with instructions, except for kids. There's no instructions. Here you go. Don't mess their life. You know, and so the nurse puts the baby in my arms. And I just started crying, you know. Everything came together. My whole life, my experiences, and I was like, "Oh, hold on a second. It's all about this person right now. It's all about her life. All the decisions that I make don't only impact me, but impacts this other person, this other human being." And you know, I remember it was like surreal, and I put her back in the incubator, you know, and then I went into the bathroom, and then I looked myself into the mirror, and I said, "Alfonso, you have to change." And so the vision that I had at that day, I was like, what am I going to do? How is this going to happen? I said, I want my daughter to say one day, you know, my dad owns the building, not cleans the building. That was the vision that I had that day in the hospital, you know, in the bathroom, talking to myself. And I didn't know how that was going to happen. I didn't know all the things that were going to unfold. The first thing that I did was I went back to high school. The reason I went back to high school, I never wanted my daughter to say, "Hey, you didn't go to school, so I'm not going to go to school." So boom, I went back to high school. I got a job. Right? $5 an hour. That was minimum wage back then, right? It was at a restaurant. Hated it. Miserable. My first paycheck. So I'm going to school full time. I'm working full time. My first paycheck for 2 weeks was like roughly about $200. And so I said, what am I going to do? I got this family. I got my daughter. How in the world am I going to, you know, be able to do this, finish school and take care of my kid? And so I took the $200. I was in Toronto on Yonge Street, and there's all these street vendors. And so I looked at jeans and T-shirts, and I'm like, what if I buy a few of these? And the guy was like, well, if you buy a few, I'd give it to you for $20 a pop for the jeans. So I bought all these jeans and T-shirts with my first paycheck. Then I went back to high school. And, you know, I had them in my locker, and I would talk to kids, you know, during the breaks or whatnot, come see me at the locker. And I sold my very first pair of jeans, okay, for $60 that I bought for $20. I made a $40 profit in 10-minute transaction. When you make $40 in 10 minutes, you can't go back to working $5 an hour.
For sure.
And so I said, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to pursue profits for the rest of my life, right? And so that's kind of how the business started at 17, right? I became the kid with the backpack, always with something to sell in the backpack. I just became this merchant, right? Jeans, hats, T-shirts, and you know what? It was enough for me to continue to, you know, go to school. And also take care of my daughter and my responsibilities, right? You know, but it was like, but I didn't really know where it was going to end up. It was just like a hustle at the very beginning, you know.
You're still surviving.
I was surviving. I
Right.
was surviving. You know, I know. So all I knew was if I got to pay the rent, I got to figure out how to get $400, right? How am I going to get $400? Well, I'm going to sell this. You know what I mean? If I can buy this for, $1, I can sell it to you for $2. You know, and that's kind of how my mindset was. And I knew that profits, when people talk to me, and I didn't even know the word profit. You know, I didn't even know the word entrepreneur. I didn't know the word entrepreneur. To this day, I don't even know how to spell it. I always get it wrong at the end, like R-E-E-R. I'm not sure. And so, at 19, my vision was I wanted to open my own physical location, right? A legitimate store, a legitimate business. When I graduated high school, and then I had this dream. I'm like, this is what I'm going to do with my life. And people are like, oh, that's not going to work. It was a hip hop store, and so they're like, hip hop is just a fad, right? It's not going to last. You know what I mean? No one in Ottawa has any fashion. No one cares, you know? And so some people said it's not going to work because there's no hip hop stores in Ottawa. And I'm like, that's why it's going to work, because there is no hip hop stores in Ottawa, right? And so I talked to all these people, and it turned out that I got a few people on board. They put in 200, 300, 500. It's my first joint venture.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I raised $2,700. And so I took the $2,700 and I went to New York from street vendors. We spent all the money. We came back. We opened the first physical location with $2,700. By the end of that year, we had grossed over $1 million in sales. By the end of the second year, we had locations all over across Canada. By the time I'm 21, now I have a nationwide business, locations all across Canada, making millions. I'm 21 years old, and I fell in love with being an entrepreneur. At that moment, it's like, this is what I want to do with the rest of my life. I love the control of my time. No one could tell me to go into work, but I was the first one there. No one could tell me I have to clock out at this time, because I was the last one there. And that was my first experience running a major corporation. And the gift that I had was that I didn't have many skills. I had the skill to inspire people, connect with people. So I would attract all the right people, bookkeepers, accountants, all the right people, to bring them on the team to do what they love to do. And so I realized that, you don't have to have all of the answers, as long as you can lead people in the right way and attract all the people that have the right answers. And so that was the first business, and it came as a result of my daughter being born.
And I also heard that you almost went bankrupt. Was
Yeah.
this business, or
Well,
what?
well, that was the same thing, right? I mean, I was 21 years old, but I have no financial literacy. This was not taught in my home, in my household, right? No one talked about credit. No one talked about how to manage your credit, how to manage your finances. All I know was I've been broke all my life, and the influences that I had or that I could see were in movies and music, where anytime people have money, they show how much money they have, and that's what success is. And when I was 21, I thought that I had to show how much money I had at that point, how successful I was. And so I went through this period in my time where I blew all the money, right? I bought cars, jewelry, trips, all of these things. And so by the time I was 24, I was negative $1 million, right? And it was hard. It was hard. The market has shifted. In 2001, early 2000s, early 2000s, we had the tech bubble burst.
Right.
And then we had 9/11. And then shortly after 9/11, You start seeing that the market is changing. Now we introduce e-commerce, competition, all of these things that ultimately I wasn't experienced enough. In my mind at 21, I thought that this money would be coming in forever,
Forever.
right? And the reality is, I was a consumer, and so I spent everything and negative
More.
$1 million,
Yeah.
right? And so by the time I realized what was going on, and my accountant said, you're in big trouble. And, the recommendation was that I should go bankrupt, right? Because certain people had left, stores were closing, employees were leaving, people were stealing, certain suppliers were cutting me off, right? And so it was like I was in a tough spot. And so I thought about bankruptcy. Now I'm 24 years old, right? And I'm like, I messed up here. Like, what happened? And I started to, I said, I got to change something. So I started to learn about successful people. I started to read autobiographies. I started to study wealth and Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Think and Grow Rich. And then it just exposed me to all of this material. And then what I realized that, whoa, I was a consumer. I should have been taking all those profits and reinvesting those profits. But I blew those profits on stuff that depreciates, right? And so, and then when I was reading about all these wealthy people, I realized that all of them have real estate. And what I want to do, I'm not going to go bankrupt. I'm going to go back and fight for my business. And I was going to go back to the way I started, when I was, young, 19 years old, working 9 to 9, 7 days a week. And I was gonna go back and build what was mine, right? Not that there's anything wrong with someone going bankrupt, but I felt it was too easy. Remember, my first value was integrity that my mom gave me, and I didn't feel right about taking all this money and blowing it, borrowing money and blowing it, and then just saying, "Oh, sorry guys, I can't pay you back." And so I went back 9 to 9, 7 days a week to rebuild my company. No credit, no income, and I sold everything, right? And the one thing that made money was my house. I bought a house when I was 21. And so that money is, I said, okay, I'm going to use this to build my real estate empire. So 9 to 9, I'm working on my business, rebuilding my business. 9:01 to like 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., I'm working on my real estate. And it's true. There's power in urgency, right? If there's urgency, your back is up. I had no income, no credit. I had to make it work, right? And so I kind of went through this transition of mindset at 24. And, it took me about a year to recover from being a negative $1 million to now my company's in the black. But in the meantime, that year, I bought 11 properties, right? And now I knew that all of the profits, I was going to just push it towards real estate, And then I started working with other people, and we started building the portfolio. When 2009 came, 2008, 2009, in Canada, we didn't experience a crash, but it was a correction. But in the multifamily space, it was all, there was no money available. So that by this time I'm ready. I'm already ready, and I was able to capture all the opportunities during that time to take my portfolio 10x from where it was. And then I've never stopped ever since. When I was 30, I sold the company, and then I just did real estate full time. Like this is what I did. I was a real estate investor.
So if I were, a lot of the times you talked about the drive was there. You need something, to propel you. There's power in urgency, right?
Yeah.
What would you tell people who don't have that urgency? Let's say, they are earning $100,000. Let's say $200,000.
Yeah.
They are paying a mortgage. Now interest rates are high, so they are feeling the pinch of that. They think that they can do better, but there's no urgency. let's say, I was a plant in your house, yeah, and you're sitting with your daughters. There's no urgency, like as such for your daughters to do really well in life. There's no urgency, right?
Yeah.
Because the basics are covered. Like, what advice would you give to a lot of those people who think they can do better, but there's no urgency, or your daughters?
You got it. Like, first of all, it's not a requirement for people to pursue wealth. You don't have to.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I don't think it's for everyone. If you are happy where you are, if you're content, if you're truly content, and you enjoy what you do, and you make enough money to survive, and that fulfills you, then just turn off this podcast.
Yeah.
No need to even there's no need. If you don't need it,
What if you're lying to yourself? I
what's
don't
that?
need it because money brings.
It's possible, but for the people that are watching this program and they're truly content and they're truly fulfilled, right? Then there's no need to try. You know, like, you're good. Life is good. You're fulfilled, because life is about fulfillment, right? My belief is in expansion. If you're expanding, you're growing. If you're expanding, you're growing. And if you're growing, that brings fulfillment. People can find it in sports, right? Some people don't care about making any money whatsoever, and they find that fulfillment in working out. And they're fascinated with it. They're addicted to it. It releases endorphins, and all they do is, like, they work out, and every day their bicep, they measure the bicep, they go on the scale, and then they gain 1 pound and 1 inch on the bicep, and that brings them that fulfillment. And if you're that person, you're on the right track, right? Because life is about fulfillment. That fulfillment's going to make you happy, right? And so the drive comes from wanting to be fulfilled and expand more of who you are, whatever that is. Somebody's going to be extremely spiritual, right? And they have a need to expand that and talk to people, get people involved in whatever it is that they're doing, get people to see things their way, and that brings them fulfillment, right? And so the pursuit of wealth, you have to get to a point where you have to want it. Like, it's not going to come to you if you don't respect it, right? And for my kids, their entire life, I've told them, this is what it is, real estate, this is where I came from. But they grew up here in Canada. Life is good, right? Life is good until it's not. Life is really good until it's not. Life is really good until you want things and you can't have them. Life is really good until you want to take trips and you can't afford them. And so, even though I've tried to tell my eldest daughter is now involved in real estate, but I didn't push it on her. She had to want it. She had to earn it herself. And it wasn't until she needed it that everything changed, because I've always tried to, encourage her to learn about real estate, and I tell, I can drill it into someone until one day she came back and she said, "Dad, working sucks." And so I'm like, oh,
Now you're talking my language.
yeah, okay. So let me come. I have another way, right? But she had to want it. She had to pursue it, And I think it's kind of neat. So one of my friends, Jewish guy, and he married this non-Jewish girl. But if you're gonna marry non-Jewish, they have to convert.
Okay.
Okay. And so they went to the synagogue. She went to see the rabbi, and she knocked on the door. The rabbi opens the door, and he says, "Yeah, can I help you?" She's like, "Yeah, so I'm marrying my husband, and so, like, I'm here to convert." Boom! He shuts the door, And she's like, oh, starts crying, goes back home, and he's like, oh, they don't want me. And then he's like, no, that's normal, because you got to really want it. So you got to go back a few times. So she went back a few times. They slammed the door, and then eventually they're like, okay, we'll let you in, right? And so sometimes, unless you really, this is like, it's like a burning desire, right? Or something can wake up, or something doesn't hurt bad enough. There's a story of the old hound dog. There's a hound dog on the porch, and the owner's right there sitting on a chair. There's someone walking by, and the hound dog is doing this, and the guy is like walking by and is like, what's wrong with your dog, dude? He's like, what do you mean? Well, the dog is doing this. Oh, my dog? Oh, that's nothing. He's just sitting on a nail. He's like, what? He's sitting on a nail? Why doesn't he just get up? Well, it doesn't hurt bad enough. Right? And so the majority of society are sitting on a nail. And if it doesn't hurt bad enough, nothing will happen. But if you go underneath the porch and you grab a hammer and boom, drive that nail into the backside of that dog's gonna get up, right? And so, you have this thing where people need to hit rock bottom or something needs to happen. And so, that's how humans are, right? Because the society is promoting that. Society rewards average. And the majority of people are just like, they just strive for average so they get there, right? That's the American dream. Get yourself a house, car, Visa card, instant life, boom, You can't do that back home. Back home, you got to survive.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's part of the Western world where it's like so affluent that everyone is just average. Things are uncomfortable. They hate their job. They hate this, they hate that, but it doesn't hurt bad enough for them to change anything, right? They have to want it. Someone has to want it for something to change.
Which goes back to the why.
Yeah.
Right? That's how, that.
And that's a lot of work. Some people are not willing to put in the work. Some people, are not willing to do the push-ups. You know what I mean? You can't hire somebody else to do your push-ups.
No,
you know
absolutely.
what I mean?
Yeah, I wish we could.
If I give you money to do my push-ups, it doesn't work.
It doesn't work, yeah. Makes sense.
So, ultimately, at the end of the day, I can help as many people as I can, right? I can't carry anybody.
Yeah.
I can guide, I can run. Whoever's with me, it's with me. Let's do it together. I can support, I can guide. I've created this community that has everything that you need for someone to be successful. But it doesn't work if you don't work.
Yeah.
Right? It works only if you do.
Yeah.
Only if you want it. Right? And, I don't know how to change it anymore. You know what I mean? Other than I continue to go from city to city. I go on YouTube. I'm on podcasts. I continue to share the ideas. And I'm hoping to flip a few. I don't know. My job is not to figure out who's going to listen and who's not going to listen. My job is to continue to plant the seed.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
What's the difference between rich and wealthy?
Well, anybody can be rich.
Especially,
you're a basketball player, you make money, boom, you're rich, right?
Yeah.
Wealth is long term, right? Wealthy is in all categories of life,
Okay.
It's if you just have money, you're rich. But if you have good relationships, if you have time, if you are healthy, if you can travel and you like, that's wealth, right? Some people they're rich, but that's all they have. Wealthy is the accumulation of assets that are going to create time for you and the next generation, right? So there's different levels of wealth, but ultimately, in my mind, it's like being truly wealthy means that you are wealthy in all of these different categories of life, not just money. Money is one part of it. But I tell people all the time, you can have it all. You don't have to just pursue money and that's it, that's all. You can pursue spirituality, social contribution. Because the idea of freedom and time is so you get to be more, you can be fulfilled. And the only way you're going to be fulfilled is by doing something that you can help, you can support, you can change things, right?
Surround yourself with people who are better than you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's wealth to me. It's a very different definition, and not just trading your time for money, right? Someone can be rich and they're still trading their time for money, right?
No, for sure. Now, I call this the fast four, the last four questions that I'll ask you. You can answer them in one sentence, or you can take a little bit of time. But what's the best advice that you can give anyone who is watching the channel right now?
The best advice that I could give someone is look at the people you surround yourself with. Okay? Take inventory of the ideas, because people's lives are a direct reflection of the expectations of their peer groups. Change your peer groups, change your lives. Show me your friends and I'll show you your future, right? And so if you're hanging around people that do not have the results that you're looking for, you'll just get more of what they have. Jim Rohn said, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. You'll have the average health, the average relationships, the average finances, the average everything, right? So that means that you're impacted by your surroundings, the people you decide to spend time with. Those people are directly impacting your results. So the very first thing that someone has to do is take inventory on the people that are around them, and anybody that is influenced them in a negative way, I would eliminate those people as fast as possible and replace it with really good quality people that have the results that you're looking for.
What about family?
That's a tough one. This is what I tell people. Love your family. You don't have a choice. Love your family. You don't have a choice, but choose your peers. Because with your peers, you have a choice.
Got it. And I'm sure you have had a lot of bad advices as well. What's the worst advice that you have seen someone get or you got?
Well, someone talked to me about working too hard one time.
Okay.
Someone told me like, "Oh, you work too hard. Why do you work so much? Why do you work so much?" And I started thinking about that. Maybe I am working too much. You know what I mean? I started to question myself. And I had to check myself. I'm like, no, I love what I do. The word work, it's a confusing word, because you have the function of doing an activity. But if you're doing something you love, this is not work, right? But work period is good, right? If no one worked, what are we gonna do, right? I mean, this is gonna be. I mean, the world needs this. It brings fulfillment. I was in Greece with my wife, and we went to the resort, and everyone there is like 50, 60, 70 years old. We're the youngest people there, and people are like, why did you come here? We just decided to come here. And why did you come here? Well, back in 1955, I told my wife that I'd bring her to Greece, and here I am, And by 8 p.m., they're like, these people are, and I was telling my wife, I'm like, these people look miserable. Like, what? And then we went to the market. And in the market, there was all these people. It's like, it was Greece, and they're trying to sell you stuff. And I'm like, look, hon, look how much fun they're having. Right? They might not even remember it, right? But the reason they're having so much fun is because they're working, right? And that working, it fills people up inside. Even if you have a fantasy that you want to never work another day in your life, you're going to find something to do where you're going to find fulfillment. You need that. That's a need, right? Even after the robots take our jobs, we still have to figure out what to do with our time. Yeah. And so at the end of the day, someone told me, hey, you work too much. And I thought, this is not really my friend.
You need to change.
Yeah, like if who
Not the
you don't
fun.
know what I'm doing. You don't know how I run my life. You know, I woke up this morning. Yeah, you know what? I was tired. Had a big weekend. And before then I was in another event and another event, but I couldn't fathom doing anything else. You know, I was retired at 30 years old. I was financially free at 30 years old. I didn't have to work another day in my life at 30 years old, you know? And so I'm here because this brings me fulfillment. And if you tell me I'm working too much, you're not my friend.
Makes sense. If you were made the president of the world for one day,
I don't want that responsibility. For sure I don't
but
want that.
let's say you have that,
Yeah, yeah.
right? What's that one rule that you would pass
Whew.
that the entire world has to
Oh,
follow?
that you're putting a lot of responsibility on
Yeah.
me, right? You're putting a lot of responsibility on me. The first rule that I would pass is to change the education system. It should be based on skills. Whatever skills and interests people have, they should pursue those skills. It shouldn't be one box for everyone. And so if I was the president of the world, my first mandate would be, let's change the education system in the entire world. We can harness the skills of everyone in the world and let them pursue that, what they love, what they want to do, what fulfills them.
No, that's beautiful. Last one. If you were to,
These are tough questions.
Yeah, I'm trying to. If you were to take someone out for lunch or dinner, and you could choose, you had one wish, and you could choose anyone, dead or alive, who would that be and why?
Elon Musk.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why?
Elon Musk, I really respect the vision, right? I really admire and I'm fascinated with people that can look not just outside the box, but way outside the box. Like, these are visionaries, right? Elon Musk has a goal to put people on Mars, right? And you know, that is, to me, that's a visionary, right? He might not even be alive to see his full vision come together, but I think that as a species, we have the responsibility to continue to explore what else is out there, right? When 500 years ago, whatever, we thought we were on a flat planet, right? And we'd fall over the edge, right? And so someone had to explore, and people had to explore and figure out, oh no, wait, the planet is round, right? And I feel that's the way we are right now. We don't know even what exists out there, right? And I think it's our responsibility to continue to explore that human need, that human curiosity. We need to continue to grow and build and see what else is out there. We're going to find out a lot about ourselves. So Elon Musk, I have so many questions. You know what I mean? So if I can have any lunch or dinner with someone and ask a bunch of questions, it would be Elon Musk.
What would be the most curious question that you can ask him?
I would ask him, like, what's his why? Like, what drives him to want to put people on Mars? Because that's a big goal, right? He wants to put a colony on Mars, right? Like 100,000 people.
And he once said that I want my grave to be on Mars.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
So I want to know why.
Yeah.
Like, what was the, like, and maybe he doesn't know why. Or maybe I would do that work with him and help him discover that why.
Alfonso, this was amazing. I think a lot of people would be motivated in the right direction. I think motivation is also directional. So I think a lot of people, even if you flipped one life today, I think this podcast would be a success, and I hope you agree with that. So it was amazing. Thank you so much for doing this.
Hey, brother, congratulations
Thank you.
on all your success.
Thank you.
And I know you're impacting a lot of lives, and that's incredible. Happy to be here, my man.
No, I love it. Thank you.
We'll see you at the top.
purpose powerful enough will make you unstoppable.